The first question is in two parts. How are you approaching building the brand today in terms of the brand and the customer experience? And the second part is, how are you measuring it? So, who would like to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. So typically just to think, Cult has two businesses. One is a fitness business, which is fitness services, where we run gyms. We have another business, which is a D2C retail business, which is where we sell sports and equipment related stuff on products. So when I talk about Cultsport in specific and how we look at it, fundamentally product purchasing for a customer is a memory. And we look at brand from that lens. When you use a product, how you like it, that's a memory that lasts. And if that perception goes well, then it lasts into the consumer telling X number of people, it tells about him coming back for a different purchase. So fundamentally, the way we look at brand for us primarily is about how is the experience for our product. So that experience which starts right from ordering, which is looking at the product, the cataloging, the images, the inspiration which happens there, to finally when you receive the product, how's the opening the box, right? How does it feel? And then finally experiencing the product. That's how we really look at it. In terms of measuring, it's being a digital business today, primarily where we sell on multiple online platforms and our own platform. It's primarily organic. So we look at how many people who come directly to our platform, how many people who purchase our products on Myntras and Flipkarts and Amazon directly without the standard ad routes. So I think that's how we really look at the strength of the brand and how we are measuring that as an overall play. So that's broadly how we look at the experience of the product, because if the product is great quality, the experience, that is something that stays with the consumer. And that's what we really have.
It's very interesting. They run gyms as well as sell sports products. But at the heart of both, one is a service and the other is products. But at the heart of both is the customer experience. And that's really what you're saying, and that's how they build the brand.
Thanks, David. Very interesting question, and thanks for the introduction. Saying Ashok Leyland, heavy commercial vehicle company in a digital forum. What are we doing here? So, when we started the journey about 7 years back, the same question was asked by our management. It said, "What are we doing? Why are we doing digital? What is it that we want to do? What is it that we try to achieve with digital? And what is the brand trying to achieve with digital?" So, as I'm a marketer from a hardcore FMCG kind of background, and come into corporate and come into Ashok Leyland. The first thing which came to us was brand building, and we said create awareness, use the consumers on the digital space, and create awareness for the brand, and get more people to know about the brand. So one of the first pieces of communication which we did, I want to show you that communication. So you just play that first video for me. I just want you guys to see it, and then I'll talk about it after that. Can you see? Are we blocking you guys?
Factory? No. Chocolate? Machines, trucks, robots. Powerful man, tall man, strong man, big man. Huh?
So this is a piece of communication which we did for Women's Day probably about 6 years back, and millions of views and talking about metrics. So then everybody said, great, you guys are doing good job on brand building. So what is the metric? So we said millions of views, engagement, and all of that. So at the end of the year, the management came back and said, all that is great, but then what's it doing to the customer? What is it doing to the consumer? What are you guys doing with digital for the consumer? So we went back to the drawing board and said, what is it that we're solving for? Is it only brand awareness that we want through digital, or are we going to be doing something more? That's when we went into what the consumer and the fleet owners were really looking for. And what we developed after citing for over 6 or 8 months is a bouquet of digital solutions, which is not just about advertising, but which is solving problems for the fleet owner. So the first one being something called iAlert. So iAlert is basically an app wherein a fleet owner sitting at his place in wherever he is can track his truck wherever the truck is, and not only track in terms of GPS, but track it in terms of 42 health parameters. And it tells him exactly how the truck is doing in terms of health and what could go wrong. So he can alert his driver, and what we were solving for is basically the fact that this fleet owner wants his truck to be on the road 24/7, and he makes money only if the truck is there 24/7.
Yeah.
So how do we use digital to solve for that problem? And then we got iAlert. iAlert told him what the problem was, and therefore he could alert and say that this is where your problem is going to be. Tell the driver. So we said, okay, he's telling the driver to go fix it. Where does he go fix it? So the next problem we had to solve for is, where does he fix this? So we had another app which we call Service Mani, which basically mapped out mechanics across the country. We have about 65,000 mechanics who are now trained by Ashok Leyland and certified and put onto this map. So he knows the closest mechanic he can get to solve the problem. Once he goes to the mechanic might be small, large, might not be able to solve the problem immediately. For that, we have another app which is called eDiagnostics, wherein we coded all the repair jobs which have come in the last 4 to 5 years, and we said that these have code numbers. So if it is a powertrain problem, this is code number, error number 333. So error number 333, we developed videos in regional languages which this guy could access and therefore repair if he couldn't repair. And if he needed spares, we have another app which is called Decode, which is an Amazon for parts. So in 48 hours time, this guy will get his parts wherever in the country he is. So we moved from just using digital to build brand and creating awareness to actually solving problems for customers, and therefore the metrics moved to how are we engaging with the customer? What is the customer getting out of this? Is he becoming more efficient? And that's how the journey is moved for us at Ashok.
What's fascinating in all of this is both of you are now speaking about customer experience being at the heart of building the brand. Because what you've taken is a heavy vehicle product and created an in-use experience which is unmatched through your various apps. It boils down to not just the product, but the customer experience of the use of the product, whether it's the fleet owner or the truck driver. Digital has enabled a lot of things, and one of them is experiential marketing. This is experiential marketing of a different kind altogether, which is on an ongoing basis. Thank you both for those answers, and very, very insightful. The second question is around innovation. We're talking about growth through innovation. How have you innovated in terms of your marketing initiatives?
So again, when we look at marketing, it comes from product. Because if you have a differentiation, which is something which you can actually deliver to a consumer, and that is your defensibility, I think so it works. So how have we innovated is, for us, one of the big assets we have is we have a very thriving fitness community where a lot of people go and work out. We also have this community where people go and play sports. As we are building a brand on this, we are actually seeing people going through various experiences, difficulties in using products. So just to give you an example, we looked at women who were regularly exercising and playing sports, and the way most women were using sports bras. sports bras typically in India were built by the large sports brand like Nike, Puma, which for majority Indians is really not that affordable. And a lot of those products are built from a very Western concept, not really understanding the Indian woman body type, their difficulties. What we went about is we understood from our consumers what were their difficulties. We innovated and created a one-of-its-kind product. That product was actually won the most innovative fashion product of the year this year. And that's how we created the differentiation, because when we cracked what the consumer wanted, whether it was how the strap should be, how it should be able to easy to remove, and how it should handle various weather conditions, I think it really changed the game for us. And the moment we brought that into the product, marketing becomes very easy, because that's what you live and what you breathe, and it becomes very easy for the consumer to understand, because that's what the consumer is really looking for the product. So that's how we are trying to innovate, which is again trying to be very close to the consumer and trying to build in true sense products for India. Whether it's the shoes we are building or whatever, in everything we are really looking at what do Indian consumers want. It's not because these large brands like Nike and Puma are really making products sitting in the US for a very different. We understand in India when a person wears sport shoes, it's not only to play. We call it an everyday athlete. The everyday athlete has to jump on a train, has to get off a bus, has to suddenly walk on a road which might have some potholes. So there is going to be what kind of texture, what kind of road structures is going to be. So how multi-purpose it can be. A sport shoe is not just only to wear for sports. So that's the core essence, to really understand your users and how do they use it. And we've been using that data quite in terms of our product. And once we get it right in our product, it becomes very easy for us.
Thanks, Arjun. Here again, what we are seeing is that using consumer insights in such a way that they can improve the consumer's experience of the brand or service is how they have innovated. And it's awesome that you're doing it in terms of women, and coming so soon of Women's Day, we've got two great examples of things that are being done to show women in a more inclusive way and actually bringing them into the workforce and actually catering to them in a meaningful manner. The second thing, of course, is that the other insight is what you talked about, the body types. It's true that the Asian body type is very different from, the Oriental body type, from the Caucasian body type, and that's a great way to kind of build for our consumers. Thank you for those insights.
Yeah,
Rajesh.
so what happened was when we were doing this insighting, and this is again 6-7 years back, we found that a lot of consumers were complaining that you guys have standard products. You have a standard truck, and I get the standard truck. I am using this truck maybe for a shipment which is an e-commerce shipment, which is light in nature and it's moving from city to city. But I'm using the same truck, but will be used for also a hard application, which is probably an untarred road and a construction kind of activity. And you're using a similar truck. You're giving me a similar truck for both of these applications. So can't you guys start looking at giving me different products for different applications? While we do have different products for different applications, the range is limited. You can't have, for each of those applications, you can't have a product which is being built. So we went back to the drawing board and said, how do we innovate? What do we do to help this guy get a product which he wants, which is specific for his application? So what we did was introduce India's first what we call modular business platform. And the modular business platform basically enables the customer becomes the designer. So he chooses what engine power he wants, he chooses what cab he wants, he chooses what load body he wants, he chooses what suspension he wants, depending on what his application is. So he builds his own truck. And we call it Avatar, the first modular business platform truck which can be built by the customer himself. And that was an innovation which is working for us today. And why is it working for us? Because him building his own truck for that application makes his business more efficient. So he's not over-engineering the product or under-engineering the product, and therefore efficiency of the product goes up, and therefore his profits go up. And that's one of the reasons why we are gaining market share and winning in the market. So that's an innovation which has worked for us at Ashok Leyland in the last We launched it 3 years back and it's working very well for us.
That's a terrific example as well. So your customer becomes a co-creator of the product according to his need.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely amazing. And I think 3 or 4 years ago when we were having a conversation, you talked about the apps and you talked about this, but they were in the planning stage. Now you're saying they're out and it's working.
Absolutely.
This is amazing. The next question that I have is something that I think a lot of us struggle with. I know that many people have mentioned it during the early part of the day when we were having coffee. How do you approach the amount you spend on brand versus the amount you spend on performance? What is the balance and what works for you?
So typically, the way we, at least any retail business or a product business, I think so, a consumer has a lifespan, and lifespan first starts from training, inspiring, and then there is an impulse. These are the 3 stages. Typically, if you look at performance spends, they do a good job at the impulse side. When you're already ready,
Bottom of the funnel.
yeah, you're already ready, and I can just push you with the right communication, the right moment, and I get you on. Whether it's a Google search ad, whether it's a communication ad with a specific offer, a discount, or something. But the dream and inspiration is done differently. So the way we look at how do we spend on brand, it's actually very difficult to split it up, because if the way we look at it, your best performance campaigns only run if you also similarly brand the consumer.
Absolutely, it's a full funnel.
So the real intent is, and now today with predominantly most of the consumers moving digital, where offline is a key component of purchase, but content consumption has really moved way more digital. Whether it is these OTT apps or even news, print consumption has gone down considerably low. So in that case, it becomes very important that brand is also built digitally. Now brand being digitally, so we fundamentally look at fair amount and equal kind of a split. It's a different moment and stage, but typically most of the year a lot more money spent on branding, and at various points in time when the consumer comes into our funnel, or we understand at a certain channel where he's really looking for a product, that's when you really invest in performance. That's how we fundamentally look at it. Now the spends accordingly change, but that's where the real game plays, because you can also defend it. Otherwise, if you just go heavy performance, what it leads to is too costly, it doesn't work out, the customer life cycle doesn't really work out. And the real point is, the biggest problem is, then the consumer comes to purchase the product only for an impulse. So if you have an ability to sell a product for, let's say, $2,000, if you don't do the brand job, you'll always struggle selling it at 2,000. You'll always be selling it about 1,500 or 1,200.
Yeah.
If you do a good job there, you have the chance. So if you have to run a profitable, right kind of a business where you want the consumer to pay the right price for the product, I think so brand becomes very key. So that's how we look at the spends and the structure. And obviously, again, in this, whether it is how influencers play a role. Again, the way most people look at influencers is the celebrities, but the true influencers are people who are more closer to the product. So in our case, when you look at shoes, sports shoes, it's not only the Virat Kohlis and the Surya Kumar Yadavs who are the influencers, but there are a bunch of athletes who are playing at the sub-junior national levels, who are playing at the state levels. They are in themselves influencers for about 200, 300, 500 people. And we are trying to unlock them as influencers then, rather than going the typical mode of saying, let's get a big celebrity, a Bollywood celebrity, a sporting celebrity. So I think so that's the different mode we are going about, and that's how we really look at brand and performance.
Again, a very fascinating insight here. I think most of you are aware that the vast majority of even urban Indians are not really looking at sport or fitness very actively. You know, if you look at the kind of lifestyle diseases there are, the kind of problems with weight gain and so on and so forth, the vast majority are not. The answer Cult seems to have found is to ignite the dream. That's the upper funnel. If they can ignite that dream and bring it closer to reality, Then they buy their products or join their gyms. It's an absolutely fascinating journey, and again reiterates the importance of the full funnel. Awareness right through consideration to conversion. Over to you, Rajesh.
Yeah, so I don't think, at least in our case, you can't look at it as being independent. Okay, I think brand and performance are interlinked, and you need to spend on both. And to your question as to where do you spend more, or where do you put your monies, I think it depends on what your problem is. So if you're looking at, for us, the north and the northeast of India is not a strong market. Okay? We are not as strong as we are in the rest of the country. So my investments in brand in those markets would be much higher. So there's a geographical split which I do for brand, and which will definitely make sure that I build my brand awareness and therefore becomes a consideration for consumers in those markets.
So it's need-based.
Absolutely need-based. But if you look at markets which are well-heeled, like a southern market or the western markets, I would probably go in for more performance and then say that this is where I need to make sure that I convert much more, and therefore my performance spends will be much higher. So it all is need-based depending on what your market is looking like, and then therefore what am I solving to achieve my objectives, and therefore I put my money where I put my money. So in some years, it is also not only geographical based, it's also segment based. So in some segments I'm very strong. So a tipper segment I might be very strong, and there I don't need to build brand. So I need to reach out to consumer to ensure that my put more
conversion.
So you look at where your requirements are and what your strengths are, and therefore where do you need to build, and then decide where you want to put money on brand and where you put money on performance. And that's been our approach largely going forward. Having said that, we do put in a lot of money on brand generally as well. So when we do a Women's Day video, we are building awareness in a general way. So that we're putting money on, and we continue to do so. What the visible change which I've seen over the years is that we've started looking at more of an impact. So if you look at our Women's Day film this year versus the film we made 6 years back, the communication would be far more, I think would be something which is far more creating an impact to society. So I'd like to show you that film as well, just to make you see the difference of what we've done. So can you just play the second film?
We told 10 random people to observe a passing bus and asked them, did you see who was driving the bus?
इस बस में?
नहीं, मैंने ध्यान तो नहीं दिया. Maybe some middle-aged man.
कोई भैया थे ब्लू शर्ट में, दिखे तो नहीं ध्यान से, पर कोई अंकल ही होंगे.
Obviously कोई अंकल ही होंगे.
ठीक से देखा तो नहीं, but some man with long hair.
Obviously कोई चाचा ही चला रहे होंगे ना.
Was it a guy with a beard?
At Ashok Leyland, we encourage women to take the wheel and steer towards a world that is equal. In association with Mission Parivartan, we successfully trained and empowered 180 women to live their dreams. It's time we switch gears and drive towards a progressive and equal future. क्योंकि कोई मंजिल दूर नहीं.
So what you will see here is that from 6 years back to now, the impact we're trying to create is to work with the government. And through this video, when we put this video out, we said, you can apply. If you are interested and you're in Delhi, you're a woman, and you're interested to drive a bus, write to us. And we have 756 applications as of yesterday.
Wow.
And we said we will train them for free. So the impact we're trying to create is much more, and we're trying to be far more meaningful in what we're putting in. So that's the difference.
I think the final learning from all of this is that both of these brands have been in some way able to establish an emotional connect with their consumers. I mean, the fact that you all clapped for these videos is you related to them very, very well. There was an emotional connect and an appreciation. So thank you for that.